So, what additional verification technology is available? How painful is it to use, especially when you're trying to close a deal as fast as possible? And then
Yeah.
let's talk about your company. What do you provide? And I mean, we don't like to do advertorials here, but let's give it a
No,
shot.
I just wrote an article about this. The What's amazing today is that the majority of dealerships already have driver's license scanners in place to scan that license, and so they have an image because they're required to obtain an image of the license. And but the main reason they're doing it is to OCR the data and auto-populate it into the CRM, right? So they have the majority. And we recently was discussing this with one of the major CRMs who provides driver's license scanners to their dealers. 95, and they have the ability to put authentication on top of that scan while they're OCRing the data to help validate the document and validate that person. 95% of the dealers opt out for that. They only want to get that image and OCR the data. So dealers really need to look at their processes and adding. We just came out with a physical scanner and a mobile scanner you can scan from your phone. It does the same thing. It grabs the data, OCRs the data, pushes it in CRM. But our focus is on validating that document. And there's most driver license scanning companies now are building these tools. So, but it validates the document. And then we also validate the identity that's behind the document, check it for red flag, check it for identity theft, check it for synthetic fraud. So we're pushing that process, that validation of that consumer before it even goes for a test drive to the top of that funnel, so that it'll eliminate people running off with cars. It eliminates the synthetic fraud early on in the process, rather than not at all or late in the process.
Sounds like it reduces your risk well into the 90 percentile.
Yeah, we did. We did a webinar with 3 credit bureaus on synthetic fraud about a year and a half ago. Anybody wants to listen to it, be educated on it, they can go to our website and download it for free, listen to it, and watch it. But and all 3 bureaus were like the best line of defense to fight against synthetic fraud and identity theft is to validate that driver's license at the beginning, right? And that's the best way to fight that. And we set up dealers all the time with our driver's license scanner. And one group we had about a 40 store group, and they were like, let's try one, and maybe over the next 6 months, we'll roll it out to the rest of the stores. So we put it in place. Next week, it caught somebody that was trying to use synthetic fraud to steal a car. By the end of the following week, the rest of the 40 stores were installed. So it doesn't add, and to your earlier point, right? It doesn't add to your workflow tremendously, right? Because you're already scanning the driver's license, you're already grabbing the data, pushing it. You're going to get some alerts that you got to work around, but that means it's doing its job. And you have most dealers should have a process in place to handle alerts today for red flags and things of that nature. They should already be in place. You're just moving them up the funnel. So it should not add a lot to a dealer's workflow.
Well, the risk is too high to a dealership, and inevitably someone's going to be made an example of.
Yes.
The state's coming down on somebody. Yes. And they go back 10 years and they pull out 10,000 customers at 47,000 a pop. Mm-hmm. And then you have to settle, and you're still out your bunghole.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. Or you just have to be able to wheel the casket through the living room, so to speak, and sell them, on preventing that risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the safeguards, you mentioned 10,000, right? There's a cutoff in the level of your validation of what you have to do to be compliant with the safeguards regulation. And it's 5,000 consumers. And it doesn't take long to get to 5,000 consumers in your databases. But to your point, you need to be advised on how long you need to keep this information, and you also need a disposal policy. Once a month, I'm going and I'm wiping out everything that's older than 7 years, right? Or so you're getting on a rolling basis after the first one, then you're getting rid of, because again, that's going to minimize your exposure, minimize consumers' exposure. But you need a good data retention policy. It's not actually spelled out in the safeguards regulation, I don't believe, but it is something you need, is a good data retention policy to support that safeguards policy.
Yeah, I call it a data trashing policy.
Yes.